Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate everyone continuing to join us here, as always, bringing you the top stories and headlines from across the country. And we just saw Alex Murdaugh step away there from the stand. He is done there testifying in his own defense after 2 days on the stand there. And we've been featuring it for you right here on Live Now from Fox, as we always do with these top stories. No sound bites here. Just try to bring it to you live, raw, and unfiltered. That's exactly what we do, and help give us some better analysis of everything that has happened with Alex Murdaugh the last 2 days. We go on the phone right now to reporter from the Post and Courier, Avery Wilkes. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And first, I just have to ask you, what are some of your key takeaways that you saw with Murdaugh on the stand?
This was a really riveting, 2 days of testimony. We weren't ever sure we would hear from Alex Murdaugh, and in fact, his defense attorneys obviously advised him not to testify, and he chose to do so against their wishes. But we heard a lot over the last couple of days. For one, we heard Alex Murdaugh's, his narrative of the events of June 7th, 2021. And a story we'd never heard before, because obviously his original alibi was shattered by the state's investigation. And so we heard him talk about how he, essentially left the scene of the crime and left the two victims behind just minutes before they were shot to death. We also heard, and we got a lot of humanizing details that we'd never heard before about Maggie and Paul and their relationship with Alex. But then we also heard a really devastating cross-examination that lasted the better part of 2 days by State Prosecutor Creighton Waters, in which he eviscerated what little remains of Alex Murdaugh's credibility. He ran through basically all of Murdaugh's alleged financial crimes and all of his victims, and reminded the jury time and time again, this is not someone you can believe. These are crocodile tears you're seeing. This is a master manipulator and con man who would tell you anything he needed to tell you in order to get what he wants, which in this case is an acquittal.
Yeah, absolutely. And Avery, also, maybe if you can explain to our viewers here just the type of town that Murdaugh is from, and where he spent many of his years in a professional setting, and just how this name of Alex Murdaugh means to the community, and just how high profile it is.
Yeah, we are in rural South Carolina. This is the lowest of the low country. He is from a town called Hampton, the very small population, a kind of place that isn't really on the way to anywhere, where everybody knows each other, where there's a very limited supply of different last names. And his family was synonymous with power and money and prestige and law enforcement in this neck of the woods in South Carolina for basically more than a century. Since 1910, the Murdaughs ran a very high-powered law firm in town that won millions of dollars for their clients on behalf of ensuing major corporations, and they were known to be very good with juries in this area, to the extent that a lot of huge corporations would not come here because they did not want to be sued by the Murdaugh firm. They knew they would have to pay out a whole bunch of money. On the other side of the justice system, the Murdaughs for 86 straight years served as the elected solicitor, and that was Alex Murdaugh's great-grandfather, his grandfather, and his father. That is like an elected district attorney here in South Carolina, and the family held that one position for such a long time. So they really controlled, the scales of justice in this part of South Carolina. And it was sort of known that if you ever needed charges to go away, or if you needed a lawsuit, or if you needed to, sue someone, the Murdaughs were who you went to. And so, obviously, when they started to become the focus of criminal investigations themselves a few years ago, there were major questions about is justice actually going to be administered, or will the authorities turn a blind eye because all of the ties and all of the close connections here?
And Avery, I know that you're under a tight deadline. I just have one more question for you. We saw Alex at times be very emotional as he was answering questions these last 2 days. And we also heard a theory on who he thinks may have done this to him, that the defense was trying to really zero in on who could have done this horrible crime to his wife and son there. And what were your takeaways on those theories that he put out there about vigilantes?
That's right. Murdaugh said today that he still believes that Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were killed by people who were angry at the family over a 2019 boat crash that Paul Murdaugh had been involved in that killed 19-year-old Mallory Beach. That was a very high-profile incident. Paul Murdaugh had been sued civilly as well as criminally charged with drunkenly driving that boat. And Murdaugh, almost immediately after the slayings of Maggie and Paul, was telling investigators and the 911 dispatcher and anyone who would listen that this was about the boat case, that Paul had been receiving threats, and that people had assaulted Paul when he went out, out on the town and things like that. So it was interesting to hear today that after all this time, 20 months since the slayings, he still believes that that's what it was. And not to say that any of the boat crash survivors or their parents or their families had anything to do with it, but saying that there were still people out there who were angry about this, and that those were, one of those people was responsible. Someone was saying, sorry about the silence.
Yeah, absolutely there, Avery. Thank you so much for your time right here on Live Now from Fox. I know you're very busy here getting the next story out there, and this is a fascinating real trial that is taking place all in real time right here, and that's why there's so many documentaries on it. But Avery Wilkes with the Post and Courier, we really appreciate your time this afternoon right here on Live Now.
Thank you guys for having me.
No problem.